And our top story at this hour, India's once high-growth IT job engine is now showing signs of deep structural change. The country's top 5 IT firms, including Tata Consultancy Services, Infosys, Wipro, HCLTech and Tech Mahindra, collectively added just 17 net employees in the first 9 months of 25-26 financial year, a staggering drop from 17,764 net hires recorded in the same period a year ago. This near freeze in hiring reflects several headwinds the sector is currently battling, from slower demand and tightened client spending to broader macroeconomic uncertainty and more dominant use of AI in service delivery globally. At the heart of the slowdown is TCS, India's largest IT exporter, which reduced its workforce by more than 25,800 employees after announcing cuts, which were equal to roughly 2% of its total workforce, mainly at mid and senior levels. Other firms also logged modest additions, only in hundreds or low thousands, which include Infosys, which added 13,400 staff members, Wipro 9,700, HCLTech 1,885 and Tech Mahindra roughly 750. With some of these gains coming through acquisitions rather than fresh hiring. The December quarter alone saw combined headcount of these 5 companies fall by more than 2,000, with TCS accounting for much of the decline, even as Infosys and Wipro managed small quarterly gains. Industry analysts say that this isn't a temporary pause. It marks a shift away from traditional pyramid-led growth models where larger headcounts drove revenue. Instead, companies are increasingly prioritizing productivity, utilization and technology-led delivery models, particularly those built on AI and automation, which reduce the need for incremental hiring, especially at junior and mid-levels. For students, fresh graduates and early career professionals, the trend raises fresh questions about job prospects in a sector that has historically been one of India's biggest employers. Recruitment, where it does occur, is becoming more skill-specific, focused on cloud, AI, cybersecurity and other high-value roles, other than the broad campus intake that the industry has seen in the past. In short, the numbers underline a moment of transition for India's IT industry, from manpower-intensive growth to a leaner technology-driven model, reshaping how and where the next generation of tech professionals will find work. Joining me on the show is Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee, consulting editor at the Business Standard. Also with us is Kanish Kaur, founder for India Future Foundation. He's also an AI expert. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking time out. Shubhamoy, I would like to begin with you. Although the net hiring was 17, it wasn't the total number of people who were hired. That was much higher. But, you know, I have to begin by asking, when you look at these numbers and this shrinking workforce, what are we to make of it? Is it just, a temporary pause due to demand, tapering down globally? Or is this a structural shift?
1 year wouldn't really make too much of a change. So we'll have to see the numbers over a longer time. That's first thing. Second is that there's definitely the type of work that the IT companies, the ones that you're talking about, had been doing. If you look at their revenue patterns, if you look at their clients, it's actually plateauing out. What you're actually getting is, for instance, much more interesting work possibilities coming up in the GCCs, the Global Capability Centers. Just as we are seeing a slowdown in IT, we are seeing that the GCC is actually sharply raising its intake. It's expected to go, so let's look at numbers. Total IT sector was supposed to have about 5.5 million IT people. The GCCs themselves are supposed to have about close to almost 3 million by 2030, and they're already at 250, 2.5. So you can see that that's where the new employment opportunities would be coming in. So it's going to be a change. Basically, you won't see the big numbers coming from the Infosys and the TCS and the Wipros and others, but you'd find the shift coming into the other in the global capability centers. That's just if you look at the IT.
Right.
However, IT by itself is not going to be as employment intensive as it was earlier. So that point is well taken. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So basically, jobs being taken away from one sector, but growth is still being seen as far as GCCs is concerned. So at this point, let's also bring in Kanishk Gaur into this conversation. Kanishk, when people look at these numbers, and some of these headline numbers are scary for those who want to be a part of India's IT sector story. So to what extent are roles vulnerable, and what are these roles that are vulnerable to IT, to AI? Led displacement?
See, India has been seen as a hub for outsourcing and offshoring. With the number of H-1B visas going down because of the increase in cost, you would see the big ITS companies significantly getting impacted. And you would see a large number of companies globally moving away from these Indian ITS companies to global capability centers. And in this year itself, in 2026, you would see more than 1,000 companies globally setting up their GCCs in India, particularly in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, in newer regions of India like Pune. And these GCCs are taking away these jobs from these ITS companies. And these GCCs are today using artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud, blockchain in a big way. And all GCCs help these companies reduce their costs significantly. And massive hiring is happening in these GCCs. So Vanguard, which used to be one of the biggest suppliers for Indian ITS companies, is now setting up a GCC in Hyderabad, hiring 15,000 people. Lloyds Bank, which is again a big GCC setup, has already hired 5,000 Indians. So the net revenue for these Indian ITS companies is going to significantly get impacted until and unless they don't change their model on how they are engaging with outsourcing and offshoring based model, giving other mechanisms or using technologies which would allow AI based adoption still to happen, and moving away from traditional ITS services like remote infrastructure management, providing resources, providing just manpower, but by equipping themselves on using AI assisted technologies, which could be voice bots, it could be AI assistants, AI assisted functions per se, whether it is HR, finance, outsourcing functions, or as simple as day to day operations.
Okay.
So, this correction needs to happen today for these ITS companies if they want to still contribute significantly to India's GDP and live in the world where the global companies have realized that instead of working with Indian ITS companies, they can set up their own GCCs in India.
Okay. Shubhamoy, if the global capability centers are effectively replacing traditional, IT services firm, primarily as, drivers and engines of hiring, how is one to prepare really for, getting employed in GCCs? Because a lot of young people who are watching this today would want to know whether GCCs are going to hire at the same scale and the same pace that IT services firms have.
Well, one of the first things I would say is that the nature of the job in the IT sector itself is changing, and that's a larger one. It does mean that basically selecting the college carefully, institution carefully, and that is becoming more very, very significant. Remember, one major sector which we are, of course, not discussing today is the maritime sector, where there's a huge demand for technological specialists coming up, and in really large numbers in India. But again, there, the trick would be that which is the sort of institution that from where one is getting the degree. So I suppose that is something through popular channels like yours should be asking people that, be careful about where you choose from.
Right.
That becomes very important because that ultimately the label of the institution matters a lot. So just somebody setting up, that I train, or there are lots of peculiar institutions that have mushroomed. It's going to be a problem if for students coming up from there. Yeah.
All right, Kanishk Gaur, if IT's role as the mass white-collar job provider is to be replaced very soon, how should institutions, be it primary institution, higher education, and skilling, how should government rethink on all of these?
See, there has to be a big push on reskilling the traditional people who have been employed in IT, ITS companies like Infosys, TCS, Wipro, because a lot of these people are gonna be made redundant as they don't adapt to newer technologies. These companies themselves would require less number of staff to serve their professions because these companies today are experimenting on using technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, blockchain, and cloud. So the dependence on the staff is going to change. So all these people who are going to lose their jobs will have to reskill. So the academic institutions which have been set up, which are traditionally helping people skill themselves, will have to create newer courses where these technologies could be taught to existing workforce so they can be adopted and be made employable again. So that is the fundamental shift. Secondly, the large number of freshers which were being hired by these ITS companies because they were mass hiring companies will stop because they won't require so many people. So the number of freshers which are coming out of fresh campuses or colleges, they would require specialized skills and degrees. So generalist skills on doing a bachelor's in technologies or master's in technology will switch suddenly on doing a blockchain based
Right.
specialization or an artificial intelligence based specialization or a cloud based specialization. So someone who was doing BTech in computer science or IT will ultimately end up doing BTech in artificial intelligence or BTech in robotics or BTech primarily in blockchain. So institutions which are providing these degrees will have to set up their center of excellences. So the people who are doing these courses are employable, and there would also be a lot of online learning and certifications which is hands-on. So the number of skills which could be provided by doing hybrid degrees would increase significantly.
All right, and before I let you both go, Shubhamoy, I have to ask you. It does look like from the trend emerging, although you said it's not a structural shift because we only have data for 1 year. Is this a precursor of what's to come as far as India's IT sector is concerned, and therefore all those potential freshers should now relook at skilling themselves to fit the GCC model to be employed in the upcoming, GCCs in the country? You said that they are hiring aggressively, but are they also hiring at a pace that traditional IT sector has? So, two questions for you there. Number one, are we to look at this as an outlook of what's to come as far as India's hiring is concerned? And secondly, how do young people really prepare for this shift?
Well, as I said, first thing, it's not. It's not a sort of mad bleak season.
Okay.
That's first of all something to be, aware of. Employment in India is opening up in lots of sectors, and being trained in tech, that the STEM education is a very good idea. That is where the expansions will come. AI is disrupting lots of sectors, but in India, the point is that the manufacturing sector, where AI would be, displacing jobs, doesn't even exist. So the manufacturing sector is only expanding. So when it's expanding, obviously there's going to be jobs. That's one thing. The problem that you're talking about is in the services sector, and basically in the tech sector, which is largely the BFSI and all those things. Those sectors, in any case, had been sort of reducing their headcounts for quite some time, or at least flatlining it. But a lot of jobs are opening up in the IT related technology in lots of other sectors, because there are more and more Indian companies that are now depending on their IT platform in lots of ways. I mean, there's no company which is not a tech company now, which works in anything. And that opens up numerous possibilities. So I wouldn't say that it's going to be a very dark rabbit hole through which people are going into. It's basically a change in jobs. Yes, the job situation will keep on fluctuating over the years more rapidly than we have seen earlier. It was happening. The pace is basically accelerating. But
Okay.
that's where I'll stop.
Okay, so would it be therefore fair to say that the volumes remain the same? It's just the sectors which are hiring have changed?
Yes.
All right, I think we'll leave it at that. It's a positive note there for those young people who are watching us, this evening. If you fear that you're not going to find yourself employed by IT sector, there are lots of concurrent sectors that will hire you eventually. Thank you very much, the two of you, Kanish Gaur, Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee, for taking time out for joining us on the show this evening. And moving